All hits all the time. Star 98.3, 733. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the show.
Hello.
We've got a guest in the studio.
We do. Mike Hewitt is in studio with us. He is running for St. Mary's County Commissioner. And is this the first time you've ever run, Mike, for a county seat?
It's the second time I've run for county commissioner.
Second time, okay.
I ran for school board back in '96, and I would call that a county seat, but it's not a commissioner's seat.
Right.
I gotcha.
So, the elections are coming up, and we like to give everybody an opportunity to meet some of the candidates, which is, time permitting, kind of tough to do. But I went through your list of what you're running on here, and a lot of it focuses on business. You're a businessman in the county.
35 years.
Yeah, 35 years.
So you've seen it all, I bet.
Every business person I've ever talked to, in some way or another, says the same thing, that government, it's not that they're not friendly to business, but boy, they sure make it difficult to do business. And I see some of that in your literature as well. How do you change that?
Well, you try to do something about regulations.
Yeah.
And it all starts with the process, and it can start at land use and growth management. It's not only about business, it's about people trying to get permits.
Yeah, right.
And Lord knows it just seems to make you jump through so many hoops.
But see, Mike, we don't get permits, so why even?
Well, I don't. But a reasonable person probably would. And it is tough. I mean, if you're building a business, let's say you're doing a traditional brick and mortar store. It's just a lot of hoops to jump through.
I have heard horror stories about drive-through windows. People putting up a business, they want to put in a drive-through window, and all of a sudden it's $20,000 more, and you need a new permit to actually put in the drive-through window, which was in the plans when they got the original. I mean, just sometimes it isn't friendly to business dealing with that.
It could be easier. It could be a lot easier. My position on it is cost of living's just too high.
Yeah.
Taxes are too high. Young people just can't get a start.
No chance.
And our retirees want to leave as soon as they can.
Yeah.
So you also see that happening with business. We're over-regulated. There's too many reasons for us to fail and not enough support for us to succeed.
It's a great point. And
how do you rein it in, though, Mike? How do you rein it in as a commissioner? I mean, what do? Do you have to fight Annapolis, or can you do it on the local level?
Well, let's say sometimes you need to stand up to Annapolis, and you sometimes need to stand up to Washington, too.
What do you do with Annapolis when you have leadership in Annapolis who, and I'm taking this verbatim from county commissioners who have talked to the leadership in Annapolis and said, listen, we've got A, B, and C as problems, and their answer to every single one of them is, you're not taxing your constituents enough.
Goodness gracious, this economy's been tough. My employees and my customers all tell me about the hard time they're having. I use the term, I have a new normal for my business. The lights are on, the doors are open. I have checks on Friday, but there's really no real money. It's not like it was 10 years ago.
Right.
I call it the new normal. What we're doing is keeping people employed.
Right.
Because they got families to feed.
So you're treading water, but you're not thriving.
No.
Big difference between surviving and thriving.
Or growing, which is what an area would like to do, is have the small businessman and woman grow their business and make it bigger and better.
Good point, Heather. It's very difficult to expand right now.
I think there's a mindset, and it's very prevalent all across the country, but there's still this misconception that business people are, some kind of handlebar mustache. They got bags with dollar signs on it, and they're squirreling away their money. It's that mentality that they, they got more money. They just don't want to spend it. I don't think people understand that's not the case.
Let me just say, there's a lot of people out there with their hand out to take it, whether it be the state government, the federal government, regulation, licensing, permits, and it's a challenge. Now, hey, look, I've been through good times. I've been through bad times. What you really need in a county commissioner is someone who has seen a lot, has had a lot of experience. And what I found is you have to be flexible. To be effective, you got to be able to take these hits, if that's the term,
right,
and turn them into something positive. Now, I look at this time that we're in right now. It's a very challenging time. I keep hearing that we're coming out of the recession, that the economy is getting better. I haven't seen it.
Well, a lot of people are echoing that
it's
sentiment.
uneven. It's uneven.
One of the things you make reference to in your literature here is a proactive relationship with Pax River, which everybody I think widely supports. I also do have some concerns with that, though. It seems to me that this area is really put all its eggs in one basket. Now, that's not a knock on Pax River, but what if something goes south there? How do we prepare for the future if they downsize or, God forbid, they move something? I don't see a lot of planning for that.
T, that's a great question. Thing is, we're on a peninsula. And when you're on a peninsula, it's not an area people traverse through to get to someplace else.
Right.
So when they come here, they have to come down, then they got to turn around and leave out. So with that said, we got the Navy base here, and thank God we have.
Yeah, it's great.
Right.
It's fantastic.
But we are seeing some cutting around the edges or some peeling of the onion out there at the Navy base.
Right.
Right.
And my point is I'm glad to see things like the UAV
Right. yeah.
coming
Sure.
into the
Sure.
airport along with the University of Maryland. That's a good idea. Now, what else can we do? I use the term find symbiotic relationships to the Navy. And maybe that's what this UAV thing will
Right.
spin off.
Right.
That some of that technology that happens on that base can kind of come off base and be used in a civilian application.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done there, and they've set up a new development commission or new commission to look at the diversity, and I support that.
Let me ask you, too, about, because as a commissioner, you're dealing with budgets. That's probably going to take up a ton of your time as a county commissioner. I'd like to talk about education, because that's a huge amount of money going to education out of the county budget. What was your take on how short the budget was for St. Mary's County Public Schools in March? That $6,000 to $8,000. You talk about
million,
transparency.
not thousand.
Million. I'm sorry, million. But you talk about transparency. How can you work with the school board to make sure this doesn't happen again? Or is that out of your hands as a county commissioner? You give them the money, and they spend it as they see fit.
I spent 4 years on the Board of Education. And I'm going to tell you, it's a tough job. And when we were on there, it was a time when BRAC had come about, and we were going to get 7,000 to 8,000 new jobs. And it was like IBM coming to your neighborhood.
Right.
There was a spirit of cooperation. There was a spirit, we're going to work together.
Right.
It was coming out of Annapolis, it was coming out of the commissioners, and it was coming out of the Board of Ed. That synergy allowed us to do a lot. During the 4 years I was there, we renovated, either started, finished, or had in the process renovating 7 schools. And that was good progress. Now, that synergy seems to be missing.
Well, and it's a down economy. It's not, the jobs aren't coming.
Yeah, but it's more than that, I think. It's not just, I think you're spot on correct. I think there's an attitude of, I don't know what the word is.
I don't want to call it mistrust.
Yeah.
But I'm going to call it transparency again. Because when you tell me you're $6.5 million down, and then you fix it in the last 3 months,
Yeah.
4 months, where did you find the money?
Well, okay, listen, and I don't want to get off topic here, but you're spot on correct. I've had, I don't even know how many people come through this door, and we've asked them all the same thing. Okay, you came up, let's call it 6.5. Nobody's even really sure what it was. They say 6, they say 8. Let's split it and say 7. You were $7 million short. All of a sudden, it's fixed, and the superintendent of schools is leaving, and we don't have any answers. But don't worry, the problem's solved.
Well, I think what happened was they got rid of they moved jobs around. They didn't.
I would like to see a real accounting.
Para-educators. I mean, and they said it was because of healthcare costs.
Wow.
That was the majority. The problem was healthcare costs.
Like to see a real accounting. That's all I'm saying. There's something hinky there.
Yeah, let me just say this. It seems like the story has changed. When it first came out, The superintendent was talking about people taking brand drugs over generic drugs.
Right.
And I hate to say this way it sounds because it sounds so terrible, is that women were having more babies.
Yeah,
or more.
that's what they said.
What is that?
What the heck are you talking
Teachers
about?
have always had babies, right?
Of course.
Well, people have been having babies for a long time.
Right. It doesn't end up costing the county $7 million over budget.
Yes. I think there's talk now of trying to do a forensic audit. And what I would say, it's kind of like the $300 an hour
Right, that's
they're
what it's
spending
going to
to
cost.
find a leak.
Right.
Yeah.
Come on. I
Right.
mean, what are we going to do? If we're going to find someone stole something or some malfeasance, okay.
And
Yeah.
what's the big deal about the leak? So to be honest with you, there are school board, there are children, there are schools. With all due respect to the board, you should be more transparent. I don't
Yes.
care if there's a leak. What stories are they making? Nuclear weapons? At the school level? Just tell us what's going on. And no, the $300 to find out who the leak was, it's nonsense, and it's money that the St. Mary's County Board of Ed cannot afford. Or maybe that's what they do. Maybe that's why they always get behind when it comes to when the bill is due. They're doing all of this nonsense with the spending of the money. I'm not sure.
We're talking with Mike Hewitt, who is running for county commissioner for St. Mary's County. If you're just tuning in, and a little bit off subject, but we're talking about education. One thing I do want to talk about, let's say you win and you're a county commissioner. And this kind of goes back to the point I said before. I think this area, not just St. Mary's County, but this entire area, has a real problem. And one of the problems that it has is, look, everybody wants to attract business. Well, one of the primary things you have to do to attract business is you have to create a business-friendly environment, and that means infrastructure. And we have some real infrastructure problems in this area. How do you address that as a commissioner?
I think we have to finish FDR Boulevard. We got to get people off of Route 235 if we can.
Right.
Now, I agree with with what some people have been saying about developers should build it. But that fits if, they're putting in a subdivision, or if they're putting in a shopping center or something like that, that works. But it doesn't work when you have very small pieces of property that's undevelopable. It's just too small.
What's the holdup on FDR, Mike?
Well, I think it's really the county. It's been something they've been forcing people to donate land and build portions of FDR Boulevard for 35 years. Now, I hear it's moving along pretty good. Look, that road goes back to the mid-'70s as being an idea.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. Well, listen,
Really?
I've been here a long time and sat on that corner at 235 and Chancellor's Run.
Right.
And I remember in the mid-'70s, a man named George Odd was on the county commissioners, and he said they were going to do it for $8 million. And everybody said, wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
But
right.
look, this much time later, the county really needs to take the bull by the horns
Right.
and finish that road.
Yeah. Now let's talk about that a little bit. If you're running for county commissioner, and I'm going to speak in very generic terms here, there must be something that the current board is doing or not doing that you would like to see change.
What would you like to do?
What would
if
you do
elected?
different?
Well, I tell you, I would like to eliminate the energy tax.
All right, let's talk about that.
Yes, there's two taxes I would like to look at. First would be the energy tax. Second would be I'd like to freeze property taxes for people 65 and older. Give our retirees a reason to stay in Maryland instead of leaving. Now, people will say to me, Mike, revenues are flat. How can you cut taxes when revenues are flat?
Right.
I would say to you that we have large fund balances in St. Mary's County. Now, to cut those two taxes would cost us a little over $2 million, maybe $2.5 million a year. And people will say, well, Mike, you're going to be down $2.5 million, plus you want to cut. That's $5 million. That's
Right.
a lot of money.
Right.
That's what I've heard. But I would say to you is I don't feel our county budget is transparent enough.
Huh.
I read things called audited budgets. There's three types of budgets. There's operating budget, and that's what we think we're going to do. And then there's also the proposed budget, and that's our wish list.
Right.
But then there's the audited budget, and that comes out 6 months after the year is done. And that budget tells you where you got your money and where you spent your money. how much you were up, how much you were down. Now, in 2013, we had a budget surplus of $95.5 million.
Really?
Yes, it's if you go to the website for the county, go under the finance tab, go under the audited budgets.
Where's that money?
Well, it
Goes back into the 2014 fiscal year? Or?
well they used 14 million of it for 2000. And listen,
Okay.
I'm sorry to get in so deep into
No,
numbers.
no,
okay.
this is
but
interesting. Well,
I'm a numbers guy.
yeah, good.
And the key is there's a lot of things that are overfunded. Our retirement
Overfunded,
Yes,
okay.
our retirement program. Listen, that is got to be fidelity to the retirement has got to be there. We have to fund retirement.
Mm-hmm.
But we've overfunded the county retirement by over $20 million. We've overfunded the sheriff's department.
How is that possible? How does that happen?
Well, here's how it happens, T. There was a thing called GASB. It's the General Accounting Service Standards Board 45. And it came about because companies like Enron, companies like WorldCom, when they went out, people said, well, look, I'm going to get my retirement.
It's not there.
It's not there.
And there wasn't any there.
Okay, okay.
So the federal government came along, or the General Accounting Standards Board came along and said, listen, we cannot do that for municipalities. If you have public employees, you have to guarantee their retirement. So they came out with a statement, and St. Mary's got their bill, and it was supposed to be something like $63 million. Well, St. Mary's, and this is 2007. So St. Mary's County said, there's no way in the world we can put $63 million in, as did many
Sure,
other counties.
Sure, of course, right.
So they went back to the actuary, and they broke it out over 30 years and said, you're going to put in $4,888,000 a year.
Okay.
Sounds good. So it's like, okay, 1 year, Heather, you pay your share. Next year, T, you pay your share. Next year, Mike, I pay my share. Well, what they did, instead of paying $4 million, they paid $14 million. And then the next year, instead of paying $4 million some, they paid $10 million. And the next year, instead of paying $4,800,000 some, they paid $10 million. They continually
Wow.
overfunded.
Okay.
Huh.
Yes. Now,
Okay.
it's a generational disparity because it's set up to be paid in this $4,800,000.
Sure.
Now, it jumps up and down depending on your number of people retiring.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And bottom line is we've overfunded it.
Okay.
Now-
So there's some money there.
Well, that's where some of this $95 million is, T.
Okay.
Because when we read the paper, they say, oh, there's only $23 million, and of which that is kind of being used, so there's really only $7 million. Before you know it, it's all spent. And you're trying to think, wait a minute now, you started out with 95. See, that doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense
Well,
to
doesn't
me.
make sense to anybody. All right. Well, that's interesting. So you're running for county commissioner.
The one thing, or a couple of things you'd want people to know before we let you go out of here. What do you want people to know about you, Mike Hewitt?
I'm a small business owner who's run my own business for 35 years. It's a business my dad started over 50 years ago. And we've provided paychecks every Friday for over 50 years.
That's a pretty impressive accomplishment.
Well, what I want to say about it, it's not always easy.
No, it's not.
And I know how hard it is to make it and how hard it is to keep it.
Yeah.
Because too many people want it.
Now, how many employees roughly do you guys have?
Oh, gosh, I'm down now. I've been downsized. I think I'm down to 11.
Okay. So, but obviously, a better economy, better things happening. You have more employees, and
Well, what I've done, I mean, I'm not getting any younger, and my wife and I are, kind of looking for an easier life, even though we have a good life. But I've worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week for the past 30,
sure,
36
that's what a business
years.
owner does. Yeah.
It's what you do.
Right.
Your employees become part of your family. But what I'll say to people is I think I'm a good businessman, and I think I've been successful because I've been able to sustain. But I've also been on the Board of Education, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Planning Commission. I've volunteered for many other boards. I'm currently on the Patuxent River Naval Air Museum's Board of Directors.
Well, it's a good project you guys are doing.
Yeah, that's a great project.
Yeah.
And
It's going to be beautiful.
It's going to be a great thing for St. Mary's
It
County.
is.
But I leave people with this. I'm a conservative who believes we need to live within our means, not above them.
Oh, that's crazy
What's
talk.
your favorite sandwich? You could have any sandwich. Don't worry about being healthy or not. What's your favorite sandwich?
Peanut butter and jelly
Is
on
it
toast.
really?
It's pretty
I mean-
strong. It's
I
a
hate
pretty
to
strong.
say it,
Yeah.
But look, I was born the fifth of 8 kids. We ate a lot of peanut
butter
and
and jelly.
You
I
bet.
bet.
All right, listen.
Mike, thank you.
He is Mike Hewitt. He is running for county commissioner, St. Mary's County. So if you like what you hear and you think that's exactly the way we should be going, remember the name. When you get in there, you pull the curtain, put a little check mark by his name, and you're off and running. Mike, thanks for coming in today. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, 7 minutes in front of 8 o'clock. Let's check the roads.
Oh, well, so